Okay, so a lot of people have been asking me to do a video series on how to make custom patterns for cosplay. I've scoured the web to try and get a few ideas and other tutorials, but I really couldn't find anything, so I'm just going to start from the very, very beginning. And this is my first video in which I will be talking about what you need to make your own patterns and to draw or draft, whatever you want to call it, your own patterns up for cosplay. Um, this can be quite a difficult process if you are new to sewing altogether. So what I can suggest to people who are like first-time cosplayers is try and look for an easier cosplay that you don't necessarily have to mod a pattern for or make your own pattern for. Like, for example, there are a bunch of characters who literally you don't have to sew for. Like Olette from Kingdom Hearts, you could literally just get like a t-shirt and paint a flower on it and buy a pair of pants and dye them yellow or find, yellow pants. So you don't necessarily have to start making your own patterns right from the beginning. But when you get better at cosplaying and you want to start, cosplaying more difficult characters like any Final Fantasy characters, because believe me, you cannot find that clothing in stores, and you cannot find patterns for that clothing. I have tried. So at that point in time, you will have to start learning how to draft your own patterns. Okay, that was a really long-winded speech, but anyway. Okay, so first are the things that you need to kind of start making your patterns, because, you can't make something out of nothing. So you do need a few supplies, which are really inexpensive and easy to get. The first thing that you need is paper. Yay. Obviously this is what you're going to be drawing your pattern onto. I've just got an A4, or I wish this was an A2. I just have an A4 because I don't really have big of paper. But obviously the bigger the piece of paper, the easier it is to draw the pattern on it, because of the less pieces of paper you have to tape together. Okay, I've forgotten how to talk, but that's okay. So yeah, something to draw your pattern onto. What I found really useful is at Checkers, you can buy rolls of this like brown paper that people used to cover their school books and stuff for like 30 rand, and it's literally like, the sheet is huge. You don't need to tape anything together. It's really the most convenient thing to draw patterns on. So if you can, like, Checkers stationery section, yes, that is where you'll find what you need. The second thing that you need are tracing wheels or pencils. It's a really short pencil, but oh well. Depending on whether you want to mod a pre-existing pattern and you need to like trace it out onto the paper and then draw on the adaptions, or obviously a pencil if you're going to draw a pattern from scratch. That's kind of an obvious thing. Tracing wheels you can literally get at any fabric store. I mean, I got this one at Fabric World in Weinberg for what, like 7 rand? I kid not. They're really, really cheap, and they're not a hassle to get, so get one of these. They are important. If you want a fancy one, you can get one of these wooden ones. They're actually the same price for some reason. Okay, so cool. Tracing wheels are the next thing that you need. Then I would suggest, measuring tape, so that you can get all your measurements when you're making your pattern, so that everything will fit, and, across the back and across your bust and stuff. This is really important. And you should actually, before you even start sewing, just measure different parts of your body, like around your leg and around your arm, and just write those measurements down and kind of like learn them, so that eventually you'll kind of know what will fit your body, and I don't even have to measure anymore, because I know exactly how big my waist is. So when I start drawing up a pattern, I can be like, okay, this is how big I need to make the waist, or this is how big I need to make the bust. So it's really convenient if you know your own sizes and if you know your own measurements. But if you don't, measuring tapes were made for a reason. Okay, cool. Then I suggest getting, this isn't necessary, but I suggest getting a fabric pencil. These are these amazing pencils that you can also get at Fabric World in Weinberg for like 4 rand that can draw on fabric, and if you just take a wet cloth afterwards and kind of wipe it, it comes off. But this is super noticeable on fabric, super vibrant, so if you're going to cut straight onto the fabrics, I sometimes do, you might want to draw your pattern with a fabric pencil rather than a normal pencil, which won't show up on the fabric as like, well, you know what I mean. And with people with my eyesight, I need vibrant lines so that I don't like cut randomly and make a huge mess. Some shops only sell their fabric pencils in these weird like Legend of Zelda, you know, Hyrulean shields, but they also work pretty well. I prefer the pencils though, just because I'm lazy and, you know, a pencil is just easier to use. Okay, cool. Okay, next on the list you have pins. Yes, this is my lovely box of pink pins. Pins are really important because if you are making a pattern from pre-existing clothing, which will be in my next video, so if you don't understand what that means, it doesn't matter. But just pins, you need pins, a whole bunch of pins. I have several boxes of these just filled with pins. So it's always a good thing to have because they're also useful while you're sewing, so you might as well have them. Okay, the last thing that I usually need, I don't know if that's the right word, when I'm making my own patterns is kind of a like list, like a visual list of things that the costume needs. So for example, for my Sussery costume, I drew this up and then I've just gone over it in black pen so it'll show up better on camera. But basically what I do, let me just try and get that in the focus. Okay, cool. So basically what I do is I just write up everything that I need for the costume. So this was for my Sussery Sexy No Jitsu pinafore. So I needed 2 of these, you know, things for straps over my shoulders. This was the square little chest piece in the front. Then I needed 3, as you can see I've written on the side, 3 for fabric and 3 for lining of the skirt. I chose to make 3 instead of 2 because then it would be able to like fit around my waist quite tight, but still have enough space at the bottom to, you know, have the petticoat underneath it. So that's basically just logistics. You can use 2 if you want to use 2. I usually use 3 when I'm making a full skirt, but whatever. Then I said that there's ruffles for the skirt. Yes, my really badly drawn ruffles, and ruffles for the top. Then I've also written down what I need at the bottom, which is paint, which I used to paint the clouds, and bias binding, which I used to make the red strip down the front of the skirt. Making a list like this is very, very useful because now you know exactly what pieces you need and you have a general idea of what shape they'll be. Okay, just a strip, just a square, just like a whatever shape that is, and, you know, some straight lines that you can make ruffles with. So now I mentally know, okay, I'm going to have to, at some stage, cut a square out of fabric and cut 3 of those shapes, you know, after I've measured everything out and made sure that everything fits. So this is just to make sure that you don't leave anything off of your costume and so that you can get a basic idea of what the shapes for your costume will look like beforehand, just to make your life a whole lot easier, like tons easier. So yeah, so let me just, you can actually see my face again. So those are just the basic things that you need for, you know, making patterns and modding patterns. Of course, you'll also need, if you're modding a pattern, you will need a similar pattern to whatever you're making, and if you're making your own pattern, you will need pre-existing clothing, like a t-shirt if you're making, like for example, Link's tunic that, you know, for my Link cosplay, I literally made that pattern from an oversized t-shirt. So if you're making patterns from scratch, you kind of just need clothing with the same shape, kind of same size, just to get an idea of what the shapes of your pattern will have to look like. So that's pretty much for it for my first video, and I hope that this wasn't completely boring. It probably was, but please just bear with me. It'll get more interesting, I promise. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say for now, so bye!